totally worth it. Hello guests, Ritzy Bellhop here. Welcome to Quite Optimal, and today we are building a fish tank. Why? Because fish are the optimal pet. They don't incur vet bills, they don't scratch up your furniture, and they only cost a penny a day to feed. Now, normally here on Quite Optimal, I use price as a key variable when evaluating how optimal items are. But in this case, I can't really do that because when I crunch the numbers, the data indicates that the most optimal fish tank on a per dollar basis is to not have a fish tank at all, which would make for a very boring video. So, in order for me to build a fish tank for you, I need to choose another variable to optimize for. And there are a couple to choose from when it comes to aquariums. I could optimize for space and build a betta tank. I could optimize for spectacle and build a discus tank. But what I want to optimize for the most is low maintenance. I want my tank looking fantastic while requiring the absolute minimum effort for it to do so. And since I'm not optimizing for price this time, I suspect it's going to be a very expensive journey. As I create this build, I will be keeping a running total of how much I spend, and by the end, we will know precisely how much an optimal aquarium costs. So, since I am optimizing for low maintenance, I will be building an ecosystem tank. Ecosystem tanks feature small species of fish and live plants, with the idea being that plants absorb the waste materials that fish produce. So by including the live plants, it will lead to less algae to clean, and best of all, far less frequent water changes. In order for this concept to work, I'm going to limit myself to species that are 2 inches in length or smaller. If the fish are too big, or if there are too many fish, the fish will produce waste faster than the plants can absorb it, which would mean that I would have to do water changes to make up the difference. And I don't want to do that. So, small fish, live plants, big tank. How big, you might ask? Well, I decided on this 42-gallon rimless tank by SR Aquaristik. The length of the tank will make it really impressive to look at, and the volume will be more than adequate for hosting the species I want. I like that this particular model features black silicone cleanly applied between the layers of glass, much nicer than what you'd find on most aquariums. SR Aquaristik does offer a stand for this tank, which looks amazing, but it's local pickup only, so I'm going to use this dresser for now until I find time to make that road trip to Illinois. The first thing I'm going to do to prepare this tank is to add black vinyl to the back glass. Blacking out the back will prevent the filter and heater cords from being seen, plus the bright colors of the fish will pop more against a dark background. Next, we need some gravel. I went with gravel over sand because the larger granule size of the gravel allows waste to fall in between the particles, hiding it away from view. I chose to use the UNS Monterey Contrasand because it will give good contrast to the hardscape. Speaking of hardscape, I'm using the Seiryu stone, a type of mountain rock made popular by the famous Japanese aquarist Takashi Amano. I'm also adding a stump and some sticks for added character. I can't believe I have only just started this project and I have already spent almost $800. Like, this video is only possible because you guys use my product links. I'm not monetized by YouTube yet. We're gonna get there someday soon, but until then, those links are my only source of revenue. So please check them out. I list everything I used for this build in the description below. It took me about an hour to get everything placed just right, but in the end, this is what I came up with. An absolutely gorgeous dual mountainscape with a dominant 7-rock mountain on the left, a minor 3-rock mountain on the right, and the stump nestled perfectly in between. As it stands now, if I add water, the sticks and stump will float. So to prevent that, I'm going to use some cyanoacrylic glue to adhere the wood to the surrounding rock. Cyanoacrylic glue is aquarium safe and will bond immediately when wet. I will also temporarily add a rock on top of the stump just to weigh it down a few days until it gets waterlogged. Also, let's add a bit more gravel to fill in the spaces between the rocks. It'll make the rocks appear more connected. Now let's light up this scape properly. Nearly every aquarium influencer has a high opinion of the Chihiros WRGBII Slim Light. So I got the 90 model to fit the length of this tank. I gotta say, it is a convenient light. You can control the brightness, what color you want, set daily timers to turn the light on and off, and when the light does turn on and off, you can set it to gently transition like a sunrise or sunset so that the fish are not as frightened. Now for the most critical piece of the project, the plants. Most plants need to be carefully embedded in fertilized substrate, but rhizome plants like Anubias and Java fern are much more optimal choices. Simply glue them onto the hardscape and they are good to go, drawing nutrients directly out of the water column. I got 2 pieces of Anubias barteri and 1 piece of Anubias congensis to be placed along the background. This will act as a great hiding spot for fish and be a great accent color as it peeks out the side of the mountain. And this variation of Anubias nana petite, stays significantly smaller, only 3 inches tall. So I got 4 of them for the foreground since they won't grow big enough to block the view of the hardscape. Now it's finally time to fill this tank. The fish that we will be keeping in this tank prefer a pH slightly below 7 and water that is relatively low in minerals. So to accommodate those preferences, I will be adding 8 gallons of spring water, which will provide just enough minerals for the plants and invertebrates, and the rest will be filled with reverse osmosis water, which has the low pH that my chosen fish prefer. I really enjoyed making this scape. Like, you know what? This was so much fun that if this video gets 500 likes, I will do a sequel video where I will fly to Georgia and I will build an optimal cold water tank for my older sister. So if you'd like to see that, hit the like button. But maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before we start planning a future tank, we have to add a filter to this current tank. I got the Tidal 55 because it has the motor located in the tank rather than the back compartment, which allows it to run quieter and also allows it to self-start in the case of power outages. The amount of water drawn from the surface versus the column can be adjusted using this knob, and the amount of water flow overall can be adjusted using this knob. For filter media, I am using a sponge, some Seachem Matrix biomedia, and some active carbon. This tank's inhabitants like warm water, so I will be using this Fluval T150 to maintain the water temperature at 77 degrees. I chose this heater specifically because it has the added safety of automatically turning off when out of water. I am so excited to add fish to this tank, so to speed up the process of getting the tank biologically established, I am adding some beneficial bacteria. 4 or 5 capfuls of this API Quick Start should do the trick. That bacteria will immediately make the water parameters more stable, so we can add the fish right away. The first pioneer in this tank will be my sole surviving neon tetra from my old tank. I don't intend on keeping more neon tetra going forward, but we'll get some other friends for him to swim with tomorrow. When it comes to livestock, a lot of people have the instinct to fit as many species as they can find in the tank. But what I've found is that if you limit the number of species, it makes the entire display look more intentional. In my opinion, the perfect number is 4 species, with each one serving a unique role in the system. First, we will need a species for scavenging. Amano shrimp have the absolute best reputation for this role. They pick up leftover food, they annihilate all kinds of algae, and they are quite hardy, living more than twice as long as other shrimps like ghost shrimp and cherry shrimp. For a tank this size, I'm adding 10. The second species will be for cleaning the glass of the aquarium. Nerite snails are the optimal choice for this role. I've got 3 of the zebra variation and an absolutely stunning red racer variant. I fully intend on getting more of these guys, as well as some spotted variations once more algae starts growing. Our third species will be the centerpiece fish. It should be the biggest fish in the tank, but remember, in an ecosystem tank, even the biggest fish should be quite small. So I chose the golden honey gourami because of their striking yellow coloration, their peaceful and curious personality, and I like how sometimes they dance the do-si-do with each other. The fourth species should be a smaller fish to help fill the space. I find schooling fish do this quite well, and the rummynose tetra is the fish that schools the most tightly of all the aquarium fish I have ever seen. They have brilliant red coloration in their faces, but that color only shows up when they are completely comfortable in the water, and luckily our tank is precisely what they want: a large space with warm water and low pH and low minerals. This tank is the result of 2 years of research, and I could not be happier with it. It is an absolute work of art, if I do say so myself. Was it worth the $1,500 I put into making it? As amazing as my aquarium turned out, I still don't think I'd recommend it to someone who is on the fence about building one. But I would say that if you have already made up your mind that you're going to build one, absolutely go all in on it like I did. I'd much rather have this setup than spend anything less on something that looks worse. If you'd like to see more videos on optimal living, I've left them for you just to the right of the fish tank. And should you ever have need of a ritzy bellhop again, you can summon me by ringing that secret bell that appears after hitting the subscribe button.